So today, we're actually going to talk about how OneTrust and Snowflake connect together. We built a native application, a native app, using the new frameworks that Snowflake has launched. And we're going to show how you can take the consent that's captured in OneTrust and actually utilize it within Snowflake to make sure that data is shared appropriately.
Ojas Rege, GM at OneTrust. Thank you for coming to Powered by Snowflake.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm really looking forward to your demo today. But before we go there, you are a GM at OneTrust. What does this mean?
Well, I'm responsible for what we do in privacy and data governance. So I'm the GM for privacy and data governance, which is a key part of our business, making sure that all of our customers can do the right things for privacy and data.
Privacy and data, that's really important. Now, what does OneTrust do in general?
OneTrust is the most widely adopted consent and privacy solution in the world. So we work with our customers to make sure that they can really respect all the different preferences and choices that consumers make in their data. We help our customers comply with all the privacy legislation out there, the regulations, but most importantly, they can actually build into all of their systems the ability to respect the choices of individuals and to ensure that they protect and manage personal information correctly.
Consent and respect with regards of data privacy, that's so important for so many companies now. Even if they don't want to, it's the law now. So. And how does Snowflake come into this story?
Well, Snowflake is a big part of this story because for so many of our customers, their source of truth for customer data is Snowflake. So they're collecting information about their customers, they're putting it in Snowflake, and they want to make sure that they do the right things with it. That they're responsible in how they use it.
Yes. And what is your demo about today?
So today, we're actually going to talk about how OneTrust and Snowflake connect together. We built a native application, a native app, using the new frameworks that Snowflake has launched. And we're going to show how you can take the consent that's captured in OneTrust and actually utilize it within Snowflake to make sure that data is shared appropriately.
I love it. So before going to the demo, you have some slides so we can frame the problem better?
I do. I can share with you a little bit on how the data model works, how the architecture fits together, and also some definitional stuff about consent.
Excellent. Let's get into it.
So what you see on the screen here is a really fundamental concept that is so important for every organization, which is to establish customer trust, you have to honor consent across the data lifecycle. Now, what does that mean? So let's start with the beginning. On the left-hand side, when you collect or you create data about your customers. So this is called first-party data, where a customer gives you information about themselves. And if they're giving you personal information, then you have to tell them what you're going to do with it. That's called purpose. So, you're going to give me your email address so I can send you a subscription newsletter. You're going to give me some demographic information so I can personalize this experience for you, whatever else it might be. And when I capture that and I collect that information from the customer, I've got to make sure I do that as an organization, respecting both the choice the customer's made and regulations. Now, once that information is in my organization, right? Let's say it's in Snowflake, I need to activate that data internally, right? I need to be able to share it with partners and I need to share it with my teams, but I always need to respect consent. And then eventually I'm going to store and I'm going to dispose of that data. So when my retention periods expire, when a consumer says, I don't want you to use that anymore, right? That's when I get rid of that data. Now, this cycle here is really key. And I want to show you how that works within OneTrust and Snowflake.
I like it how this is like the full cycle, from collection to storing to processing until the end when you are getting rid of the data.
Exactly.
You need to manage this whole thing.
And the key with responsible data use is exactly what you described. It needs to happen across the entire life cycle of the data. You can't just do it for half the time. You got to do it for the whole time.
Cool.
So now let's look very specifically at how this would work for a OneTrust and Snowflake customer. So the customer, our mutual customer, has got a ton of websites. They've got a ton of mobile apps. They've got all these data collection points that you see in the top left there. And on each of those data collection points, they're collecting information. They're collecting preferences, how they want you to communicate them, how they want you to use their demographics, how they want you to use XYZ, whatever it might be. So OneTrust acts as the source of truth for that consent they've given. What did they consent to and when, right? What did they say? What were they told when they consented? That's really important because, what did you promise them? And then how did they do it? Did they click on a box? Did they send something in? Whatever it might be. And the key thing here to remember, and we'll show this in the demo, is the notion of consent, which is I'm giving you permission, is always tied to a purpose. Permission for what, right? I'm not giving you permission to do everything, something specific. Now, today, and this is why that arrow's bolded, we're going to talk about how that on the left connects to Snowflake, because the customer data is going to be sitting in Snowflake, and somehow we need to make sure that the consent decisions of that individual are respected when that data is now operated on or activated within Snowflake.
Awesome. Throughout the whole life cycle.
Exactly. So now I'd love to be able to show you how this actually works within OneTrust and Snowflake. So what you see in front of you here is the OneTrust native app that we've built for Snowflake. So we've used the frameworks within Snowflake, which have been actually really helpful because this way now the Snowflake user, right, does not have to understand everything about OneTrust and vice versa. The two systems are connected. So if you look here at the main description of this native app, these are the three things it does. It's going to integrate that consent data I talked about from OneTrust and Snowflake. Great. But now really importantly, it is going to apply masking and access policies, which I'll show you. And that's going to allow a Snowflake customer to be able to share data responsibly, either internally or with external entities. So I'm going to start with how initialization works.
Yes. I just want to call out, I love to see that this is an app inside Snowflake. You are a Snowflake user using Snowflake Warehouse, and this is all running inside Snowflake securely, safely, and bringing the OneTrust logic for Snowflake customers.
The native app framework has made it really straightforward to build services like this. We really, really enjoyed doing that. So how do you start it if you're a user? I'll just share a couple of things, and then we're going to talk about the really interesting stuff, which is how does it actually work? So your Snowflake administrator is going to have a whole set of information, right, that they're going to enter here. The database, the share name, external integration, that's us. Now, what happens once you do that is the following, which is we need to make sure that the appropriate credential is there to be able to leverage OneTrust, right? We need to connect these systems together. So great, right? There's a nice, effective, secure way to be able to do that between the two systems. And then the next thing, which is really important, is Snowflake connects to the integration service within OneTrust through an API key. So all of that is set up, and at this point, what will now happen is that as consent information updates within OneTrust, it'll also update within Snowflake so that these masking rules that we're going to show are always going to be up to date and consistent. So let's now get to the kind of fun stuff, I think.
We initialized and now we're connected.
Yes, exactly. So you'll notice there's a couple of different things here in the data model that are useful for us to, I think, explain. So the first is, who are the Snowflake accounts that you're going to be data sharing with? So in this case, that account number you see there, TV B15916, assume that that is a third party. So I'll kind of describe the use case. Assume that the Snowflake customer is a retailer. Mm-hmm. And assume that they have to share information both internally for their marketing team to be able to reach out to potential customers, but also to brands that they might be working with. So a retailer has 5 different brands of orange juice that they have in their grocery store, right? And they might share information with those folks. So they may also have a Snowflake account. So in this case, this account ID is the third party that we're going to be sharing information with.
We have our customers.
Yes.
And we want to share data about our customers with our partners.
Exactly. Customer to partner. That's exactly right. So let's now talk about what you need to do to make that happen. So purposes, I referred to a little bit earlier. This goes hand in hand with consent, which is I'm going to take your personal information and I'm going to use it for something. I have a purpose. So I'm going to show you a specific purpose, direct marketing, right? You see down there. I'm going to select that. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll over to the right here, and I'm going to show you what's in that particular purpose. So you'll see the little snippet here on the right-hand side. So what we're saying is when you have a purpose of direct marketing, You may have a couple of different preferences. I can connect with you over email, over SMS, over direct mail, right? And I could do it every 2 weeks, weekly, daily, monthly. So I've got a purpose and I've got these preferences attached to it. You're going to give me your data so I can use it for the purpose of direct marketing in these different ways, right?
And as a customer, I might love to get offers every day.
Exactly. I mean, you would be perfect. Every retailer would love you if you're willing to take offers every day.
And I can make my choice, and you know
it's
about
your
the
choice. And actually, that's the key point. It's your choice. And this now is going to be able to enforce that choice.
Excellent. And my choice can change throughout time.
Can change, yes.
How do you track that life cycle?
Yes. So what's nice is when that choice changes, OneTrust knows right away, right? Because we're sitting on the websites of all of our customers. So that's where you go to make that change. We know right away. And because of that integration with Snowflake, that information is effectively passed over to Snowflake.
Exciting.
So in this case, this might be the information, the data elements about this customer, their last name, country code, language, first name, country. Okay, great. So now, how are the policies going to work? So at this point, what we've done is we've said there's a couple of different purposes, there's a set of preferences, and we have certain data that's going to come in from the customer. Now we have to set up the actual rules to make it work. So you'll notice access and masking policies here, and this is the part that I think is the most fun, personally. I'm going to pick direct marketing, which we just talked about. And then I'm going to say, well, okay, let me, and by the way, you'll notice at the top, this is my role. So here I'm sharing with someone internally in my company, right? This is the Snowflake customer saying, I want to share something with my marketing team, and here's what they should have access to, and here's what they shouldn't. So I'm going to pick here a channel. And you might remember channel was, email, SMS, and so forth. And I'm going to pick, let's say, email. So what is this telling me? This says that, and this is the policy I've set up, if someone from my marketing department, I'm the retailer, my marketing department comes in to this data set, right? And the customer has given us consent to be able to share information for direct marketing, then they're going to see these two data elements, first name and country. But they're not going to see the other elements. Let me actually show you in a little bit of a graphic what is going on under the, at the top level here.
Excellent.
Yes, exactly. So we started with source data in Snowflake. We've got John, Paul, George, and Ringo, right? They love getting advertising from retailers. And we have two different sets of purposes here, direct marketing and consent for sharing, right? And you'll notice some of them have said yes to both. So, John, big consumer, who said yes to both. Paul said yes to one, not to the other. George, same thing. Ringo likes them both as well. So what I just showed you is for internal marketing team, when my internal marketing team comes in and tries to access the data, they're coming in on that first purpose, direct marketing. And they're going to get that information from John, Paul, and Ringo. And they're only going to get two data elements. They're going to get first name and country in this case, right? So let's go back to what we were showing before here, right? First name and country on the right-hand side. Marketing people get that.
And this is how OneTrust understands its rules and uses the Snowflake native policies to enforce it.
Exactly. And in fact, the point you just brought up about native policies is really key. So all this data is in Snowflake. But now if someone from the marketing team comes in and they have access to everything, immediately you're going to break that consent trusted relationship with the customer. So what we're doing is through this native app mechanism, we're actually bringing the consent in, and then this is utilizing the native masking policies within Snowflake to make sure that only certain columns or rows are seen by that individual.
And now those policies are enforced, and you can test them with the roles.
Exactly. And I think most importantly here is now you can legitimately say you have ethical data practices that you're respecting, right, the rights of the individual. Now we're going to make it a little bit more complex because that was just within my company. Now we're going to bring in a partner, right? So I'm going to click on other accounts over here. And here, why would I share information with a partner? Because they want to promote, they want to advertise, right, to that individual. So as I mentioned, if I'm a retailer and I have partners, 5 different brands of orange juice, whatever it might be, they want to advertise to my customers, right? And some customers will find that of value and some customers may opt out. So here, we're going to do something very similar. We're going to say, we're going to set up a rule, and the purpose here is promotion programs. And The particular element of this is data sharing with third parties, right? So I've set all these preferences with different options. So if I have a program on the top here, I might say, oh, that's a loyalty program, or it might be a data sharing program. So in this case, I've said that when this particular partner comes in, right, the partner we talked about before, right, and that's what you see here, this OT product, that refers to the partner.
Account ID.
The account ID, exactly. They're going to see first name, last name. And that's all for the customers who consented for that communication with them. So if we go back here, you'll notice, just like we had on the top there for the internal marketing team, now we've got the third-party marketing team, and John, George, and Ringo, but not Paul in this case, said, it's okay, I want to get promotions from your partners because they're going to give me coupons and I'm going to save money in your store, right? And I'm going to give them the first name and the last name.
Exactly. And here we are not setting up the rules for a role, but for a different account we are sharing with.
Exactly. So what we've shown there at the top and the bottom, top is my internal teams need to use data responsibly. But of course, my partners also need to use data responsibly. And no company is an island, right? All of us do so much data sharing with so many different entities. One of the big challenges in the past is how do you actually enforce consent when someone else now is accessing your data? And so the nice thing about this is the source of truth for the data remains in Snowflake. None of the data was modified. But using the policies, using the information, the logic that came from OneTrust, in real time, dynamically, those masking policies were applied, didn't change the data, but changed the view that the user had.
No, I'm just thinking of how it keeps growing in case you have more accounts, more rules, more users.
Exactly.
OneTrust is handling this full logic in one place.
So just to take the retailer example and stretch it out, imagine your local grocery store. How many brands are there in that store? Right? Those are all partners, right? And now this gives you a central and consistent way to be able to manage things like consent, no matter how many partners you have. So this lets you scale as a company. There's not additional effort because you've added 50 more partners. You look at those partners and you assess what rules are required and you make sure those rules are in here.
I love it. That's cool. Can we learn a little more about OneTrust?
Sure, absolutely. So as a company, we are 8 years old. We were founded in 2016. And the reason we were founded, and which I've always loved, is because privacy is a human right. And when the original regulations around privacy hit, it was to be able to ensure that all organizations were respecting that human right and that they weren't misusing that data. So our first set of products were all around how do we provide software to let companies responsibly use this information. And that kind of means something to me, right? It's nice to work on something that really matters.
You've been in the industry for a long time, and now privacy is one integral part of how we do stuff.
Exactly, because we're all digital now. We all have our digital identities, and there's a lot of personal information tied into those identities. We also have a GRC business and an ethics business, so this notion of trust has expanded quite a bit over time.
Trust and ethics.
Exactly.
And then how does Snowflake enter the OneTrust world?
We have so many mutual customers with Snowflake. The two products, the two solutions, they're so complementary. So for so many of our customers, their source of truth for data, customer data or other data, is Snowflake. Right? And we're providing the trust layer for them to be able to utilize that data effectively.
How have customers received these features?
Well, it's interesting. Just before coming here today, literally like an hour before I got in the car and came over, I was talking to a customer about exactly this. And they were a pharmaceutical customer. And what do pharmaceutical companies do? They do clinical trials, right? They do a lot of stuff with a lot of personal information. And they have a lot of partners that are involved in that process as well. And so this notion of being able to, have the right logic, really, right? And really the kind of the right ethics around the way that they manage their central data stores in Snowflake is really important to them.
Oh, that's really cool. And for you, it's also been an adventure to see Snowflake changing throughout time, adding features.
Yes.
I see you have a native app now.
Yes.
How have you embraced those features and work with the Snowflake to not only develop within the framework, but develop the framework together with the Snowflake?
Yeah, it's been a really great experience for us to work with the native app framework because what it's done is it's let us focus on the things we're good at, which is the left-hand side of that chart. It's all the consent and privacy pieces. And Snowflake, of course, focuses on things that it's really good at, which is all the data elements. And we've been able to bring those together through this interface in a way that otherwise would have required a lot more custom work.
Yeah, I just to see it, everything working integrated together is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really neat.
What's in the future? What's new? What's going to change?
Well, the thing I love about this market that we're in, no day is the same. Like the rate of change now is just immense, because not only do you have all the things we've talked about for privacy, but now you have this enormous wave of AI coming in. So what does AI need? AI needs data. And if responsible data use was important before large-scale, fast AI systems, it's even more important now, because now you've got large volumes of data going in, lots of automated decision-making happening, and it puts a real focus on every organization to make sure that they're being responsible in using data and having the right permissions for that data. So I think all of this kind of feeds on itself. You can't do AI right unless you get privacy right. And what we see with this integration, for example, I think kind of fits really nicely into that transition as well.
For sure, how we train models, how we use our company's data, but that's also our users' data. And
exactly. And you can't unlearn, right? Like if I take personal information and put it in a model and then realize, I shouldn't have done that, I can't use that model. I got to train it from scratch. So the stakes just went up. You got to get it right up front. You've got to build all this stuff at the beginning of the process and think about all these data ethics elements right up front.
And you are in the middle of it.
Yes, we'd like to think we're, in the middle of it, which puts a lot of responsibility on our shoulders to do it right. And this is why it's been really nice to work with Snowflake, because the set of data capabilities that Snowflake has had have fit really nicely with the work that we've been doing.
I love it. As someone that works at Snowflake, but also as a customer of so many companies that wants to know that my data is being treated with respect and ethics all around the industry.
So hopefully, as a result of this demo, you'll feel more comfortable that your own data is more, or at least I should say that the companies you work with, whose services you use, now will have the opportunity to take up their privacy program up a level, because they can enforce things in a way that they may not have been able to enforce it before.
They need help, and we are here to help them as Snowflake, as OneTrust, and as consumers that want their data protected.
Exactly, which is, I think, all of us at this point.
That's beautiful. And for people that want to do more, take the next step, where should they go?
Come to OneTrust.com. We have, obviously, you can contact us there, but we also have a ton of information, a ton of resources to help people navigate these sometimes complex scenarios, right, around what they should do and how they should do it. So we pride ourselves on not just saying, hey, here's our product, but also what are the best practices for privacy, what are the best practices for AI governance, and try to kind of give people a bit of a framework in which to operate.
Nice. So OneTrust.com to learn more, to go deeper, and to get this implemented in their Snowflake accounts.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Ojas, and thank you so much for everyone watching. For more Snowflake developer content, go to developers.snowflake.com. And don't forget, like and subscribe.